I am a rare entity in the industry, and I listen to everything, from Indian classical music to jungle, like white dominated shops.
What would you say is your thought process when you're creating something?
Being a black woman, there's not much like space made for me in the industry.
When did you start your journey as a tattoo artist, and what was the catalyst?
So I started my journey as a tattoo artist in, I believe, 2018. And honestly, the catalyst was, I had moved to London from Manchester for uni, and several years before. And I went to UAL to do sculpture and dropped out after a year. And then I went to, I worked for 2 years in retail, and then I went to Goldsmiths to study creative computing, and I dropped out after 2 years. And that was like the last thing that I expected. I was always super academic, and I was super excited to move to London and go to uni, get my degree. But so many things, as you know, I moved when I was 19, so many things just changed, and the adulting kicked in, and the new experience of London. And I just found that like learning a non-academic like subject or creative subject in a place of academia it was just like weird for me. And so I dropped out, and I was like, what am I going to do with my life? I was approaching, I think I was 24 at the time. And I was just like, what am I going to do? And I was dating someone at the time that was a tattoo artist. And one New Year's, I think it was 2018, like New Year's, I said to myself, okay, my New Year's resolution is to like try absolutely everything I think I want to do. And tattooing was on the top of that list. And I bought a starter kit and set it up in the corner of my room. My ex-partner kind of watched over me, and, I started, and then I wasn't good at it, so I dropped it. I'm an Aries. I'm quite like I like to be good at stuff straight away, which is not realistic. But yeah, I had to go and quit and had to go again. And then I was like, what else are you going to do? Because I knew in my spirit that I knew it was something that I did love to do. I just didn't love that I wasn't good at it. And so, yeah, I persevered, and here we are 5 years later. Could never imagine that I'd be a tattoo artist ever. And yeah.
So what is your experience in the industry as a black woman been like?
Oh, that's a good question. My experience as a black woman in the industry has definitely been challenging. I grew up in a place called Moss Side in Manchester. It's predominantly black area. And when I moved here, I didn't feel, I don't know, I just never kind of experienced that experience of like working mainly with white people or in a white industry, or I never really considered that kind of side of life. But as I got into the industry, I was obviously very oblivious about, the kind of infrastructure or, what it was going to be like. And I'd, just kind of set off on my journey, and then quickly realized that, I am a rare entity in the industry, and that it's going to be challenging because there is a lack of representation. I haven't had too much experience in working in shops. I've always had my own studio, but the odd times that I have worked in shops, it was difficult. I was the odd one out. I felt quite isolated from the rest of the group. And, I wouldn't call those spaces a safe space for me. So yeah, it's definitely been challenging. And obviously originally we were going to speak about being a woman in the tattoo industry, and I said that I didn't really have an opinion about that. And that's, I later realized that the only shops that I have worked in have been like white dominated shops. And so the blackness always came first. But then I understand that as a black woman, if you have worked in a black shop with mainly men, then maybe you will feel the impact of being a woman in that space.
Okay.
So yeah.
Okay. So I've been watching your style over the last couple of years really develop, and it's become quite particular.
Yeah.
But I feel like it still lends from different, places.
Yep.
And it's you've been able to adapt it to different subject matters.
Right.
What would you say is your thought process when you're creating something?
I think the main thing is I'm quite intrigued in like the idea of taboos, and I'm quite intrigued in when society tells you that you can't do something. I always ask the question why, and I always feel like there's a place to be that offers a level of expansion to the community or the space that you're in. And so I've always wanted to, I always like to be different, essentially. And so I kind of saw what was popular. There's a lot of like fine line illustration, especially because I tattoo a lot of females. So it's a lot of dainty stuff. But I've always loved, like, I love bold ink. I love heavy black, like, line work, and I love traditional. That's why I love like traditional Western traditional tattooing style. But I just love to be the idea of boldness and brashness, and I think that stems from my childhood of being around so much like I was around a lot of gang violence, a lot, and I kind of, I'm very much an analyzer. So I'd watch kind of groups of people and how they move. And I suppose a lot of people in my community, they were fighting back against police brutality. And so there was like this boldness and brashness there. And then the way people dress, so many like of the older Jamaican girls, they're wearing colorful hair and bright dresses. And there was always like a level of rebellion that I saw around me. And so I think that's definitely influenced my style. And I think being bold is the best way to be rebellious in a sense, or the loudest way you can be rebellious, not necessarily the best. And so with the kind of new understanding that like being a black woman, there's not much like space made for me in the industry, and understanding that there's so many people still today as black people going into tattoo shops and getting refused. I really wanted to create that space for myself and my people. And so that's where, I've always been obsessed with just like as a general idea of like African art or just black art, especially historical kind of heritage, artwork. And so I really wanted to bring that in, and allow that to influence my work and what I'm doing. However, I'm also I feel like it being a white dominated industry, or the Western tattooing was obviously created by white artists. I think they hold the key to a lot of knowledge in terms of like how the machines work, the styles, the artwork, how to approach things, the technical side of it. So I am heavily influenced by like where some of these artists, white artists, have taken the artwork, because we don't really see much like bold kind of tribally stuff in the black community. And so I wanted to bring those two things together.
You mentioned basically white people having a lot of the knowledge, and obviously they've got more of a modern historical space in the tattooing industry.
Right.
Do you think that outside influences, i.e. the bigger world, influences the fact that black people get less opportunities in the industry, and they hold the knowledge, and it's almost like because of a social issue, it affects the industry as well.
Oh, wait. So are you saying essentially
racism kicks in
terms of like
in the tattooing industry? So
us being held,
yeah.
like having space to
Yeah.
take up, like, do you think that's a reason why there's...
I think so. I honestly think so. I'm asking, do you think so?
I think when I first came in and I realized, like, okay, there's not much representation and there's a lot fewer of us black people that are tattooing, I did immediately jump to that, and I do think it plays a part in that. However, I do think it's more complex than that. I think that obviously where kind of traditional tattooing was born in terms of Western traditional tattooing, I think that a lot of those people, the Navy SEALs, of course, racism all over, you know. But I did realize that it's more complex than that. And I think it's this weird like catch-22 situation where there has originally been lack of space made for us. They didn't learn how to tattoo on our skin because we weren't really getting tattoos like that, and because we weren't welcome. And so as black people have started to learn about the craft of tattooing, we haven't felt welcome to go into these spaces and learn. And so we've kind of set up our own community. And with us setting up our own community, there's now like a separation, which has always been the case. You know, I look at it as like, it's you tattooing, and the politics inside of tattooing is like a microcosm of what's going on
versus the macrocosm
elsewhere. Sorry?
Versus the macrocosm,
right.
which is the large, the outside
exactly,
world. Yeah,
exactly.
So that was my point. Like, a lot of these artists, they live in the same world as us.
Yeah.
So they consume their information, I'm presuming, the same way that we consume our information. And the modern day of consuming, modern day way of consuming information is usually social media.
Yeah.
Once upon a time, it was text, then it was TV, and now it's social media. So I feel like them being part of the multitude, the mass that basically makes the world move, they have propaganda projected at them, which makes the same way it makes police racist, certain members of the NHS racist. It makes, when we come into the studio, because this propaganda has separated us.
Yep.
We come in and we pose a threat to them. They're not just their livelihood, to them. They feel anxious around us. Do you get what I'm saying? So
1000%. I've experienced it myself.
Exactly. I've experienced it.
You know, especially if you're strong or you're opinionated. When I left the last tattoo shop that I was at, I was labeled the angry black woman. Literally. You know, even a mixed race brother said to me, you're quite militant though, aren't you? Yeah.
What does he describe as militant?
I mean, I'm strongly opinionated, and I'll stand up for something if I think that, you know, it should be otherwise, then I will say something. And for him, that's classed as militant, but it's only, obviously he's not realizing, because I'm labeled militant because I'm black. Because if that was a white woman, you wouldn't label them militant, right? So it's like all of that is such a toxic environment of like, it generally boiling down to white people have a lot of work to do within themselves, right? And so do we. And so, yeah, I do think racism is a massive part of it, and they don't realize, and that's the issue. But also, I feel like, okay, so I've come across a couple of white artists that have said to me, because they know I'm very open, I treat people on an individual basis, right? They've said to me, like, I want to broaden my client base, and in terms of like backgrounds and skin types and skin tones, but I don't feel comfortable. They have a wide variety of white skin, right, to come to them for tattoos, but they don't feel comfortable to specifically ask for black skin, because when you learn how to tattoo, you tattoo your friends, you tattoo your friends of friends. So if you're a black person with black friends, right, that kind of extends out, and suddenly you've got a whole black client base. And it's the same for white people. So that's why I'm like, it's a little bit more kind of complex, because then so if a white artist that's only surrounded by white people wants to diversify their client base, how's a safe way to go about it? Because if they ask online, for example, I'm looking for some black skin to tattoo, right? Or black people, or however they say it, dark skinned people, melanated people, whatever. There's going to be a large percentage of black people that are like, this is not right.
Yes, you would experiment.
Do you see what I'm saying? So it's like, it's tricky as well, because we as a community, or we as a people, sorry, not necessarily as a community, we have our backs up. We're already on the edge of, you know, why did that person say that, or why is that person doing that? And so like, it's very hard for any white person that does want to do better, because everyone's got something to say about it. So that's keeping it, I feel like that's keeping it at where it was.
Yeah, it's
do you know what I
keeping
mean?
it separated, yeah.
It's very hard to diversify and merge, and even for white shops, right? If they want a black artist,
how do you advertise for that?
How do you advertise for that? How do you ask for that if you don't know? And then
you have to
a conscious white person,
you have to practice discrimination,
right? And so a conscious white person that's like, you know what, they understand the history.
Yeah.
They're going to be like, I feel a little bit like weird about asking for this, and like, how's this going to be taken, because they have no black people around them to ask, right? And some people might say, well, as a white person, if you don't have any black people around you, then there's a problem there. But people are just in the groups that they are.
Absolutely.
And do you see what I'm saying? So
and I always say
techie
to customers as well, like, people have said to me before, this white artist hasn't got no black clients.
Right.
I said, well, people usually go to, or they tend to want to go to, someone who looks like them to provide the service that they're going to get.
Yeah,
unless
definitely.
they can't find it, then they'll go elsewhere.
Right.
But like he said, there was a time when there weren't no black artists.
Right.
So there was ample opportunity.
And there were no black people getting tattooed.
And there were no, well, no,
really.
there's been black people getting tattooed. I mean, I know people that are in their 60s and they're showing me tattoos that they got in the 70s.
Right.
And
right.
So there's been ample opportunity. I got into the industry in 2010. So if you count back to the 70s, that's nearly 40 years.
Yeah.
There's ample opportunity in time. I think what's happened now, why people are so eager to get involved in tattooing darker skin, is, first of all, lockdown brought down a lot of things. You know, suddenly it was this whole inclusion thing. And then suddenly people wanted to get involved in you know, tattooing dark skin, and they wanted to showcase what they could do.
Right.
But
it's all, there's a lot of performance.
Performance.
The studio that I was at was massively I remember COVID is when I went to that shop, right? And the owner got attacked online, right? Because, you know, I think it was announced that I was coming, and then people were like, oh, she's the token black girl, this, that, and the other. And I was like, at the time, I was like, this person never done me any wrong.
I remember that period. I'm not going to lie, I was worried for you. I was worried.
A year. And you know, I'm so grateful that I had that experience, because I learned so much. And I really think it's because the industry is gatekept to a certain degree, and I do feel like they hold most of the knowledge. I think it is important for us to dip in and out of spaces that we do feel relatively comfortable in, to gain that knowledge, and to also try and like change things or move things along in however you see fit, you know. And I'm really happy that I went there. But a year and a half later, it all came out. It was massively performative, and I was like, okay. And again, I think it was so, a lot of white people are so oblivious, because they're not outwardly racist, right? They don't heckle and hurl shit at black people down the street. They don't think that they're racist. They don't think that there's an issue there to deal with.
But a lot of people don't understand exactly what racism is.
Right.
They presume it's usually a prejudice.
Right.
So I don't like you because your skin is black.
Right.
And the news says that you're this or that. They don't understand it's an actual economic practice.
Yeah. Yeah.
And it's because it's faceless, it finds its way into everything.
Right.
They don't understand that. They haven't been educated on that. And they've also been educated or tricked into believing that their skin color makes them superior.
Yeah,
you know, even if you're like the lowest of the low, the bottom of the working class, at least you're not black.
Still
do you know
carry
what I mean?
that.
It's
yeah.
that kind of.
I saw a video the other day. I don't know if you've seen it, but one black guy was doing like a little, like a street little, I don't know what you call it. You know when they stop in the street and ask people questions, whatever. And he stopped two white girls and he said, if you could be any other race, what would it be? And one girl, she said, what'd she say? She said, white, like, why would I like want to be black? Like, we're superior. And then he was like, oh. And when I watched it, I was like, it's true though. Like, as a black person, I'm very proud to be black, right? But like, as a white person, what you expect a white person to say, oh, I want to be black. And if they do want to be black, it's for all the wrong, false reasons, right? It's because it's cool. It's because it's trendy. It's because we got the big this and the big that and the curvy this and the, you know, it's not because it takes 8 hours to do your hair. It's not because, you know, we've been through all of these struggles. Like, you know, so honestly,
that's like you said, that's their truth.
Right, that's their truth.
Yeah,
right.
They've been tricked into believing that they are superior.
Right.
They honestly believe it, and their lifestyle and the place that they live and the destruction that their leaders have caused. Right. It leads them to believe that, well, of course, we're the superior race. Yeah. We own everything. We own everything. Yeah, right. And I think that is that's very damaging. Right. It's very, very damaging.
Think, honestly, I'm at the point, I think this is why I'm so happy that I went through that shop experience that I had, because it really allowed me to, for one, see things, you know, like kind of see into some blind spots that I had, work through my frustration, because I was angry for a long time after I was like, I'm going to ruin this person's career. Yeah. And I know so many other people that felt the same way, you know, because it wasn't just me that went through that. But then the frustration settled, and really, and I've gotten older, and I'm really at a place of like, every conversation that, first of all, a lot of us black people, most of us have conversations of struggle. We have conversations of deficit. We are constantly comparing, even if we don't realize that we are. And I'm really over that. I'm really, the way I described it to someone the other day is like, you walk into a minefield. Now at this point, you've gone into the minefield so many times, you know where all the mines are. But you still step on the mines, and I'm like, I'm ready to look at them and be like, okay, these are the obstacles, but we can work around them. How can you expect the oppressors to take your shackles off?
You can't.
That is wild to me, and that's where black people are like, on a whole, it feels to me we're still stuck there, and we're progressing very slowly, but we're still waiting for someone to come and save us, or a group to come, that superior race. Sorry, I'm doing the quotation. That, you know, that race to come and save us. And it's so wild to me. And it, you know, I took that kind of understanding and I really absorbed it. And I'm like, okay, with my life and my career, my relationships, how am I moving forward? How am I taking what is and what has been for so long? And how am I making sure that I use that to grow and to conquer and to just develop, you know, and become a better human being, a better tattoo artist, and all of that. And I'm really over complaining and comparing. That's the space that I'm at right now.
Yeah, and I think you've ushered us into our next kind of question. I mean, let's talk about the flip side of, we spoke about the negative side of working in a studio that's not black owned, or owned by someone who doesn't have a similar experience to that of what we've had either growing up or as a person. Let's talk about safe spaces. Like, so you've now gone and created a safe space that you've had for nearly 5 years. Talk us through the journey of that safe space. What brought you to want to create it? What is the vibe like inside of it? Talk us through it.
Okay. Well, I think the first thing is that I can only say it's a safe space for me. I would like to be able to say that it's a safe space for other people, but I think that term is used in not the most considerate way, with the intentions of being considerate. I don't think it's up to you to decipher whether you have created a safe space, or if I think only when you're on the receiving end or using that space or being welcomed into someone else's space can you decide for yourself if it's a safe space. So I've created a safe space for myself, in hopes also for creating safe space for people like me or my clients. You know, it's private. It's only me. You only have to deal with my energy or the couple of people that might be around me in the space. For me, tattoo shops, especially white tattoo shops, they're very hardcore. They're very cold. They're very metallic and dark in a feeling, you know. And I wanted to create the opposite of that. I wanted to have my home comforts, and you know, when I respond to people's emails and send them my confirmation email, I ask them if they want to bring their incense, their pillow, their book, like whatever. You know, I ask them to take their shoes off at the door. Or outside energy, let's keep it outside. And I light on my incense, I light on my sage, I put on some tunes, and I listen to everything, yeah, from Indian classical music to jungle, you know. And so I feel the vibe when the person comes in, and I maybe it's a bit of like profiling and figuring out like, but sometimes I ask them, what's the last song that you listened to? And I put their vibe on so that they're comfortable, because I can listen to anything, you know. So it's about making them feel wanted, invited, safe, and heard. Like if they want it, you know, as tattoo artists, we end up being therapists sometimes.
yeah. Too
You
much.
know, so it's like if I have the capacity and you need to talk, I'm here. And I want to, for me, my tattoo practice is spiritual. I'm leaving a mark on someone's skin forever. I hope that our energy harmonizes with one another. And that is usually the case when you get clients, right? Because your artwork is an extension of you. So when someone likes your artwork, they're normally on the similar vibe. So
normally, but sometimes
not. Sometimes not.
Sometimes
You're like, oh,
off.
like how did I get this one? But yeah, I really want to I want to extend that kind of notion, that feeling of it being a spiritual practice, of me honoring your body with my artwork, and of you honoring your presence and your body to my artwork, you know. So that's the vibe that I feel like I put out in the studio. Yeah, it
sounds lovely. It sounds like I need to come down. I did try to come down that one time.
I know.
And you fell asleep.
Oh my God, Rob, I'm so
nice
sorry.
in there. You fell
that
asleep
was crazy.
and left me outside.
I know, that was so bad.
No, I'll come back up again.
I fully fell asleep.
I will come back up.
I always got my phone on silent.
But I know you started something new, the Black Tattoo Company.
Yes.
Give us an insight into that. Okay,
so with everything that we've just spoken about, I felt like I wanted to create a solution. And the Black Tattoo Company, one day I was walking to the studio and I just had this download and I was like, that's it. And again, the name says what the fuck it is, right? And I wanted it to be obvious, but also, have you ever noticed, like, because I've never heard white people use the term black so much than they do in tattooing. So like, there's so many tattoo studios that are like, I don't know, Black Dragon tattoo studio. Obviously we have Black Ink, we have Black Work, we have Blackout. Yeah. And so the term is often used. So when you go to like use hashtags or whatever, you have to think of everything other than black. POC, melanated, darker skin, brown skin. So yeah, that's why I called it the Black Tattoo Company, because I wanted to, I mean, that's a whole nother conversation, because there's so many negative kind of connotations or ideas attached to the term black, that I don't necessarily think it's something to what's the word? Reclaim, so to speak, right, in the world of tattooing. However, I did want to, I thought it would just be cool, because you never heard the term black in tattooing unless, you know, that is connected to black people, really. And the whole premise of it is I want to help build a more tight-knit community amongst us melanated artists. I feel like we do have a community, but, you know, you're here, Sammy's in Norwood, which is not too far. And then obviously there's Inkology in Brixton, and there's not many black tattoo studios. And so there's a lot of us artists that are in our own studios because we don't feel like there's anywhere to go. And there's not enough black tattoo shops to like take everyone. And so I just wanted to help kind of build a community. And I feel like there's so much potential with us artists. There's so much more to achieve. On the knowledge and technical standpoint, I think that we should be sharing more. I do feel like when I look around at everyone's work, the standard is lower
than,
like, the tattooing standard is lower, I feel like,
in the black community.
In the black community, again, comparing to the white community. I think there's so much more we can learn. There's so much more we can achieve. Do you
think that the standard is lower because of the numbers?
Again, several factors. I think there's on a whole, there's less black people getting tattooed. Whether that comes down to even wanting to get tattooed or financial, whatever. Like, I think that we are more separate. We don't hold the knowledge, and so now we're like, well, we're segregated from the people that hold the knowledge, and then on top of that, we're separated amongst each other. I think it's harder. I think, like, in terms of because we are separated, the journey can feel a little bit harder as well. So we often focus on ourselves, and because of our sense of pride, we struggle to ask for help. There's so many factors that go into that. And I wanted to just help build something where we can come together. We don't have a black tattoo convention. We spoke about it last time.
We spoke about that years ago.
I don't know any black tattoo artists that own machines, that can build machines. There's very few black tattoo artists that I've met that can actually build a machine from scratch.
I know one.
Sammy, that's
Holland.
all I know.
He's in Holland.
Oh, really?
You know, he builds them from scratch. Like, he gets the metal, he cuts it, he does everything. And coils, wraps the coils, everything.
Okay. And so I'm just like, this knowledge should be general knowledge, because now, so I interviewed Sammy, and I'm coming to you soon as well, but I interviewed Sammy last week, and we were talking about that. It's like, it feels like the hunger and the drive to be the best at your craft is kind of like, new tattoo artists are lazy, essentially, right? And for me, I feel like I fall into that. We discussed, I feel like I have an old spirit and a want to know the kind of the old ways or the traditional ways of tattooing, but I came to tattooing when there was Procreate, when you're all of
ancient
that,
but modern.
Right. Yeah. And so, like, I feel like these old ways are not really very accessible anymore, especially to like new black tattoo artists that haven't already had that ingrained in them or haven't had that traditional apprenticeship. And so I think there's so many reasons why, and I really just want to help spread that knowledge. I want us to build together, to work better together, and also with that, I feel like so much opportunity to create opportunities for newer artists that's to come. I don't want people that come after me to go through what I've been through.
Yeah.
You know, so that's why I created the Black Tattoo Company, and also to showcase how like amazing we are, you know, and yeah, we I'm very excited that I had this idea for like a year, right? And I started planning it, but I'm not gonna lie, I got the not heebie-jeebies. I got scared, right? Because I remember I had a conversation with you as well again, and I got a little bit scared. I'm not gonna lie. I was like, I don't feel like I've you never stop learning, but I don't feel like I've learned enough, like in terms of tattooing. I'm still on that journey myself, so I had all these thoughts in my head, like, who are you to like create the Black Tattoo Company? How do you think you're going to do it alongside everything else? Like, I was scared to kind of like speak up, and I feel like the Black Tattoo Company, when I had that idea, when I had that vision, it needed someone to speak up, to orchestrate and like help bring people together. And I do think that's one of my strong suits in my like personal life amongst friendships and stuff. But I felt like it required, again, that brave person that I feel like I could be, but I am quite introverted. So I was a little bit scared of that. So I put it off for ages and I planned so much of it. But then this year I was like, no, Niche, like, do it, and like, allow it to just like journey and change and just grow alongside it, know, and see what it becomes, and don't be too controlling over what you think it needs to become. Allow it to grow and take up the spaces and help where it needs to kind of exist where it needs to exist, kind of thing.
Absolutely.
So that's the premise of Black Tattoo Company.
Okay. So do you see a division within the Black Tattoo community?
Yeah, a little bit. I do.
I think what you touched on earlier was very it was quite honest when you said that you can only really make a safe space for yourself. It's an experience that I had to learn in my own way. You try to have this space where you feel like anyone who can kind of identify with your experience can come in and work with you, and it doesn't work that way.
Doesn't work that way. And I'm sure you've learned as a shop owner.
Absolutely, I've learned that way. It's very important. And what people fail to do is to leave their ideas or their philosophies or their baggage at the front door. They can't do it and come in and just do the job. They have to bring it in with them and kind of like pour it all over you. And
well, a lot of us people, again, I think that a lot of us people that ended up tattooing, we might have gone through a few troubles in our lifetime.
Oh yeah, definitely.
And also it's a creative job. So like everything you're creating is from your spirit, from your heart. So it's hard to leave the baggage at the door. It takes that separation.
Yeah.
And so definitely, I do think there's a division for that reason as well. Because there isn't much option for us in terms of like black-owned tattoo shops, and we're just all kind of struggling by ourselves. I think that all also creates like a massive divide. And I think for me, it's quite sad to like see. It's quite sad to see, to be honest. I think there's a lot more that we can be doing together, and there's so many artists that I know of, which actually I want to speak to after this, in terms of like the podcast and stuff.
Absolutely.
There's so many artists that I know of, and I've really made an effort to contact every black tattoo artist that I've found working in the UK, and starting to do that beyond the UK as well.
What's the reception been like?
Sorry?
What's the reception of them artists? How have they received you?
It's been good. It's been good. Like, I've only really like said hello and like kind of, made sure I was trying to follow everyone through the Black Tattoo Company page. But it's been good. I think, again, everyone's in their own world, so it's quite hard to gauge when you haven't actually like met face to face and everything. But I think ultimately, I feel like if I sat down and spoke to every single black tattoo artist, they would, in some way or another, they would understand like where I'm coming from, and that there's so much more that we can be doing individually and as a team of people. And, you know, I'm excited I just want to create opportunities for myself and opportunities for other people.
Yeah.
So that's...
Yeah, share the wealth.
Yeah.
Absolutely.
Yeah.
All right, before we close out, what advice would you give to a young person who wants to get into tattooing?
That's
a young black person. Matter of fact, just a young person.
Okay.
Let's take the color bar out of it.
Oh, that's a hard one. I think, first of all, this career is not easy. Yeah. So tattooing looks glamorous and all that. Even from an 8-hour day session to the whole journey of like, you know, trying to kind of establish yourself in this industry, it's not easy. Don't expect it to be an easy ride. Be patient, because if you don't go through first of all, if you go through a traditional apprenticeship, it's going to be pretty much hell, right? And if you don't go through that, you need to be able to kind of, is garner the right word? Garner the patience within yourself to put yourself through a similar experience that a traditional apprenticeship would put you through. And there's so much patience in, even like, think about how long it took you to make a straight line, Rob. And back in the day with those machines as well, like, you know, so it's like, it's just a long process and it will beat you down. The amount of times I've like made a mistake and I've gone away and I'm in a funk for 3 days. I can't stand myself. I'm like, that person has to live with that forever, you know? And
it's a lot of responsibility. It's
a lot of responsibility. You're marking someone's skin for life, no mistakes. And you're constantly improving. And you're constantly improving. You have to practice on people. Yeah. So it's just, it's not easy. I wouldn't say it's glamorous at all. But it is a lot of fun and there's so much reward in it. So you just have to persevere. And also be a knowledge seeker. Go wherever you need to go to soak up whatever knowledge you need to. That is super, super important. And I feel like we, you know, as new artists lack that. We're like, we're in our safe space and we're just going to do this. And you know, it's quite scary to see. I'm actually quite, I can't pick the right word. It's not worried. It's not frustrated. It's like, I'm only concerned ultimately about my own like growth as well as my community. But like, you know, I don't try and focus on other people's work, but I do think that there's a hunger that's missing amongst us young artists, and I hope that the next generation of tattoo artists finds that hunger again. Yeah, I can agree with you. I feel like it's gonna get worse every generation, if I want to say. Right. I think the more access we have to things, I think the more lazy we become, and the more things become easier. And also like with social media and stuff, like now you have to be a videographer, a photographer, a commentator, a comedian, an entertainer, an artist. Like we have to do so much, and I think that's the beauty about like becoming an artist before this time is like you got to really focus on your craft. And the tattoo shops were still like revered and very much like a family kind of, whether it's a broken family or a very well put together family, it was like a family orientated like space where people built and grew together. But now tattoo shops are kind of the reputation or the way that we hold tattoo shops highly is now kind of being broken down. And so like everyone's kind of more on their individual journey, and it's I think that's like that's kind of what makes it like harder in a way. Is like sometimes I'm like, I want to draw, but now I need to make this post, and it takes me like, for the Black Tattoo Company, it takes me 4 hours to make one post. And it's long, bro. I hate doing that. Like I just want to, whether it's reading a book, walking, whatever I need to do to kind of center myself and get myself together, or to create art, or to just create the art. Like it's it's very long doing all of that
Yeah.
stuff, and so I think that's a reason why people have gotten like lazy as well, because it's all about making, like, sometimes I'm like, I need to bang out 10 flashes to get it out so I can pay my rent, you know, and it's like become quick. It's not like spending 3 days on a painting anymore, because I'm like,
it's become commercialized. It's very much become commercialized. And it's about, now advertising is the art itself. It's completely the art. Sometimes I look at some tattoo artists' work, some artists, painters, illustrators, whoever it is, and the work, it's not to my taste. I'm not going to go as far as saying it's shocking, but it's not to my taste. But their ability to advertise, it trumps their ability to tattoo.
Yeah. So what we're going into a time and a space that really lacks spirit. And is going, obviously, with the digital age, the information age, like we're losing our spirit. Absolutely. And once art loses its spirit, we're all fucked. Yeah, we already are.
I always call social your personal propaganda machine,
right?
And that's what it is, because you know, good propaganda or bad propaganda, that's a good most people choose to put out because they've grown up watching TV, and nobody who is on TV, no presenter like, i.e. Philip Schofield, is going to put their mess out on on screen.
Right.
So you put your best out on screen all the time. And now people have this persona that they've put out in the cyber world. They try to carry it out in the real world. So it's almost like you've got a lot of people walking around with a mask on. And it's this whole pretense. They're constantly selling themselves. You know, people, they don't even go to events to enjoy themselves no more. They go to events and they're like, got their cars, they're prepped, they're this, they're that, they got their video. It's insane. Nobody can just enjoy anything anymore.
And that was another thing to the young artists. Find a way to enjoy your craft, and find a way to make sure you're honoring yourself in your craft. Don't do things. I know quite a few artists that have changed what they're doing or their style because it's not making money. And I get it. I'm not here judging. Some people have kids, some people whatever. But for me, it's like I could create more art, and that's what I'm working towards. I have a lot of fear. I'm a perfectionist, and I've got to get through all these personal issues. But my aim is to like create art that is truly an extension of who I am. And when I look at it, it's looking back at me, you know? And that's what is missing, that interest of the internal, you know, and like expressing that. That's what's missing. Because tattooing can be quite rigid, right? You have all these rules of like how's best to create this design so it does heal well, so it does age well, and like it can be quite, you're already fit into a brief. And then on top of that, when you announce your style, people expect you to stick to that. So it's hard to take that and like, you know, grow with it and allow it to go into something else. And have the same people like following you along the journey. It's pretty hard to do that, but like no artist wants to sacrifice anymore.
I think it's because art has become so trendy with obviously the advent of social media. I think that there's a difference between like a creative and an individualist. So, you know, a lot of people who switch, they may have been creatives, like you said, they have families and whatever, and they've got so on to feed. But I think it takes a level of fearlessness to create a style and stick with it.
It does.
It takes a great level of fearlessness and persistence to stick with it. Nish, give thanks for joining us today on Inkwa Talks. Can you tell us how we can find you by your socials and so on? So my Instagram is
Blu Xion. A few people pronounce it Blu Xion, but it's Blu Xion. It's BLUXION. And same for TikTok. I'm not really on TikTok, but yeah, same for TikTok.
All right, give thanks.
Thank you. Thanks, Rob.